Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another modern magazine thing. Now, even though I'd kind of given up collecting this many months ago, I was walking around my local shop recently and I saw this, Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer issue number 20. Now, while I consider £8.99 to be a bit highly priced for a fairly thin magazine and whatever gift they've got in the bag of this issue, I am a sucker for role-playing stuff, so seeing something that local and that convenient, I picked it up. Now, I was very surprised at it being issue 20 and still available in a shop. I can only guess that somebody is ordering this on a monthly basis, and then sometimes they don't pick it up, so the staff put it on the shelf to be sold to anybody wandering around like I am. But usually these multi-part magazines, they've long gone off the shelf by about issue 10. They sell the first few to get you interested, and then they want you to subscribe, so they know exactly how many copies they're going to print. So they don't have lots of issues being sent out to shops and then being returned, and they have to refund the value of it. And then they've got all these copies sitting around, potentially damaged from travelling out to the shops and then travelling back. But for some reason, this one's still in my local shop, so I grabbed it. So anyway, let's have a look at Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer issue number 20. So, this is Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer issue number 20. Now, I'll chuck the bag out of the way as quickly as possible because it's very reflective and very distracting. Now, we've got the magazine itself, which is about 30 pages or so, although on the back it says it's 122 pages, but I'm guessing that's just the page count of where these sections go in if you put them in the folders, which they're punched for. And the gift with this one is a nice little felt effect dice bag and a really big D10. Now this feels weighty. I quite like all the embossed nature of the numbers on it. It's a very nice dice indeed. I like that a lot. Not sure it's worth the massive cover price. The magazine's $8.99. So for 30 pages plus a big D10, I'm really not sure about that at all. But inside the magazine, what do we got this time? So, we have environment, falling and suffocating. Going into the effects of falling, the spell Featherfall there to avoid it. And suffocating, and magic item, potion of water breathing. So, different things you can put up against your players and solutions. Now, far more than that, I'm really liking this section because they're covering character death. Now, it's not a fantastic exploration of it. It talks about threat of death makes the game thrilling, but DMs need to balance their game so characters aren't in constant risk of being slaughtered. Now, I really like that idea, that you're putting an article in to discuss with novice GMs how to avoid killing players. But it doesn't really delve too deeply, because it is only these 2 pages. Nice picture, nice artwork as always. But then we've got a section on death and dying. Talking about death saves. When should a character die? Death should be fun. Make it fair. You hold all the power, so don't just wipe out your characters or your players. And bring them back alive, so you can reincarnate or have resurrection spells to bring characters back. Funeral services. Should a character die, and some will, plenty of role-playing opportunities can still ensure their death is a meaningful event. Well, it doesn't really express why. Perhaps the body needs to be returned to its homeland for burial, potentially challenging quest into itself. I'd really like more fleshing out of that, how to actually turn these things into something adding to the game. And a fitting tribute. Even after death, a character's memory can still be carried by the rest of the party, not to mention any possessions kept as personal relics. Their favoured blade might be renamed and wielded in their honour. For example, and if a new character is rolled up to replace them, could be family members of the departed, a child, a spouse, or even a parent taking up their mantle. Well, that's something I really like, because I'm playing the same members of the same family that I've been playing since 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons, way back in the early 90s. I'm still playing the same family now. But I like this idea. I wish there were rules for that, and perhaps there are in some game, that a dying character could imbue their favourite weapon with some magical idea and it would become their sword. A way of balancing out a party by okay, you're losing a relatively high-level character, but you're gaining a magical item to benefit the group afterwards. You know, somebody died, but somebody else really benefits from it, and the party's far more powerful. But anyway, carrying on, because that's just me wishing for something which isn't in Dungeons & Dragons. We've got running horror encounters. So it has a big boxed out section on player consent. You know, there's various things which your players might not like. You know, they might not be happy with gore, cannibalism, spiders, cruelty to animals. So check what their hard limits and their soft limits are. Agree a phrase or signal anyone can use during the game. Now, this is a fairly modern thing, but I do like this. I have had players which are just like, nope, don't like that. I'm going to leave the room for this section, just when you hit their hard limits. And as a game, it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be unpleasant. So I actually do like player consent rules quite a bit, even though I don't really use them. I've just grown better judge of what to put in. But we've got stuff on horror games, so creating the right atmosphere. Now it suggests turning down the lights and stopping people using their mobile phones. Physical handouts and props like a letter scrawled in blood are also great. Now these are just generic advice. I wouldn't say those are particularly different for a horror game than anything else. But we've got a big section on narrative techniques, you know, including all the senses. So things they see, things they hear, which can be more horrific. If you walk into a blood-splattered room, then you know something's happened. But if you hear bones breaking in the distance, then you're really unsure what's going on. It's far more mysterious and far more terrifying. Some really good advice in there. And we're on to a section on potions. Talking about just generic stuff about potions and a few sample ones. We've got healing, water breathing, potion of invisibility, vitality, storm giant strength, and dragon's majesty. We've got a section discussing surprise and the surprise rules in Dungeons & Dragons, the basics of surprise and the subtleties of it, but also 4 ways to gain surprise. Move stealthily, set an ambush, impair your foe's senses, you know, add fog cloud or silence, be unpredictable. Really good advice for players. A section on battlefield control, you know, direct control, terrain control, trickery. Covering over one of the backgrounds, so the criminal spy background. Something I'm not that familiar with, but we've got advice on role-playing it and the benefits of being a criminal spy. We've got the Church of Kelemvor. They are faithful followers of Farron's own Lord of the Dead. May have vowed to eliminate the undead wherever they can be found. Which goes on to the encounter. But we've got stuff about the faithful of Kelemvor, Merkel and Jurgle, the realm of death. And finally, we've got an encounter. It's really quite interesting because they still are calling these encounters, even though to complete the adventure, the characters must venture into the Von Tessa Mausoleum and destroy the holy censer within. So they're delving into a mausoleum to destroy a censer which is bringing the dead back, on tone with the horror elements, on tone with the Church of Kelemvor there. We go through, and it's really not much more encounter. It says this would take second level characters, play can use generated characters, playtime 1 to 2 hours. This is really just an encounter. It's very short indeed. Essentially, they're going into the mausoleum. There's no big bit about getting to it. They are contracted, so there's an advert up looking for adventurers and approaching the person who's hiring them to do this. But the rest of it's not much at all. There's some keyed locations, and then there's the censer, which they must stop. The censer is bringing skeletons back. It's unholy influence, fight to the death, destroying the censer, the aftermath of it. And we've got thaumaturgy, we've got the skeletons which are being brought back, and the spectre, which is the big bad, which needs to be defeated to shut down the censer. Now, as I said, this is an encounter. It's not a big adventure. I'm very disappointed that we've reached issue 20. Obviously, I've skipped over all the ones since, what was the last one I looked at? Issue 7. And we're still on second level adventures here. I know they've got to flesh it out quite far, but people want to get past that. They want to get past the weak phase. They want to get onto more interesting stuff. And if after 20 encounters you're still only second level, you're going to be very, very disappointed, I think. But anyway, the magazine itself, there's some really nice sections in it. I was very much impressed. The adventure's not very good at all. There's some sections which are kind of far too brief, but it does have a large and very lovely D10. So whether that swings you, whether you want to get issue 20 of Dungeons & Dragons Adventure or not, I leave that up to you. So that was Dungeons & Dragons Adventure issue number 20. And I am a sucker for that big dice. That's cool. The magazine itself, not so great. There's some interesting articles in there. There's some definite food for thought, but a lot of it's not that interesting. The adventure itself's pretty bad, and the fact that they're still stuck on second level after 20 issues is really stretching things out pretty far. But, as I've said in previous videos, I will continue getting this if my local shop has it. Now, I think it was issue 7 I had last, and this is obviously issue 20, so maybe I'll get another copy in another 3-4 months, but we shall see. Let's consider this the last video in the series, as we did last time, and if it crops up, it'll be a surprise to us all, as much as a surprise to me when I wander into my shop and see it. But anyway, I think I've been waffling on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.